Okay, what is up there YouTube? This is J Man Time, and today I have a video on one of the most overpowered or powerful Czechoslovakian machine guns developed before and used during the Second World War, mostly by the German forces and the British forces, and that is the Czechoslovakian vz.60 or the Czech 60 caliber heavy machine gun, developed between 1934 and 1935, entering service in the same year of 1935 and staying in service until the end of World War II in 1945. Now, the vz.60 was a heavy machine gun that was developed as both an anti-aircraft weapon, a tank or vehicle-mounted machine gun, and as an anti-tank weapon, developed by the Brno manufacturing plant based in Zlín, Czechoslovakia at the time. The weapon was chambered for the rare 15 by 104mm Brno cartridge and was fed by 40-round metallic belts. It had a rate of fire of 420 rounds per minute, and the gun weighed 55 kilograms or 121 pounds by itself, or 203 kilograms or 447 pounds with the tripod and wheel mount attachment combined. The weapon was produced from 1935 until at least 1943, both in Czechoslovakia and in occupied Czechoslovakia and Slovakia, known by the Germans as Bohemia and Moravia during the Second World War. In total, at least 2,000 to 3,000 of these guns were manufactured between 1935 and 1943. Now, the biggest user of this weapon was actually the British, believe it or not. The British made their own copy of the vz.60, known as the Besa machine gun, which was used in many British tanks and armored cars starting in 1941. But Czechoslovakia originally exported these weapons to countries like Yugoslavia and Greece during the years before World War II. The 15 by 104mm Brno cartridge had a maximum armor penetration of between 6 and 28mm at ranges of 500 to 1,000 yards, so it was very useful as both an infantry support weapon, an anti-aircraft weapon, but also as an anti-tank weapon for many of the interwar tanks that Czechoslovakia was expecting to deal with during the interwar years. In 1939, Czechoslovakia was annexed by Germany, or at least the Czech regions of Slovakia were annexed by Germany, leaving the Slovak and Ukrainian regions as two separate states, known as the Slovak state and the state of Carpato, Ukraine, which was later annexed by Hungary in 1939, the same year. After the annexation of 1939, this weapon was incorporated into the German Wehrmacht and also the Luftwaffe and Kriegsmarine. During the Second World War, during the first years of World War II, the Wehrmacht actually did not like this weapon very much, and it was mostly used as an anti-aircraft weapon. But as World War II dragged on and production continued, the weapon saw widespread use with the Wehrmacht as an anti-aircraft weapon and a vehicle-mounted heavy machine gun. It was basically the German 50 cal of World War II, but designed in Czechoslovakia before World War II. It was also used by Yugoslavia during the German invasion of 1941 as an anti-aircraft weapon, and by Greece in 1941 also again as an anti-aircraft weapon, and in the year of 1940 during the Italian invasion as an anti-tank weapon used by the Greek forces during the war against Italy and against Germany between 1940 and 1941. It was also sold to Iran. Iran was the first nation to import this weapon. In 1937 and 1938, Iran purchased at least 70 of these vz.60s from Czechoslovakia. In total, Czechoslovakia exported over 1,137 of these guns to multiple nations before and during World War II. In total, Czechoslovakia sold 70 vz.60s to Iran starting in 1938. 477 vz.60s were sold to Yugoslavia in 1938 also. 140 guns were sold to the UK between January and April of 1939, just before the annexation. 200 pieces were sold to the German Kriegsmarine in 1940-1941 after Germany had already annexed Czechoslovakia, and another 250 pieces were sold to Spain between 1942 and 1943 before production ended. As I said earlier, the number of guns that were produced was somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 in total, with at least 1,000 to 2,000 guns ending up in the hands of the Wehrmacht, the Luftwaffe, and even the Kriegsmarine. The German Navy or the Kriegsmarine mostly used them as anti-aircraft weapons on their torpedo boats and on some of their U-boat models. The German Luftwaffe sometimes used them as anti-aircraft weapons for their Luftwaffe ground crews. And the German Army, as I mentioned earlier, used them as heavy machine guns, dual-purpose machine guns, either as infantry machine guns, anti-aircraft machine guns, or during the early part of the war as anti-tank machine guns with some of the Wehrmacht units during the early days of World War II, and they continued to be used as anti-aircraft weapons throughout the remainder of World War II, and as infantry support machine guns throughout the remainder of World War II with the Wehrmacht until 1945. After World War II, the weapons were pretty much decommissioned, with most of them being scrapped or melted down, and today only about 100 or so of the vz.60s still survive in various museums throughout Europe and in the former Soviet Union, and in the former Soviet republics, as many of these were captured by the Soviet forces towards the end of World War II during the fighting on the Eastern Front. And that basically ends the history of the Czechoslovak vz.60, the heaviest or most powerful machine gun developed by Czechoslovakia for use by the Czechoslovak infantry, and also one of the heavier machine guns used by the German occupation army during the Second World War. It was basically the Czechoslovak 60 caliber machine gun, while the Americans and the British were driving around with their 50 caliber M2 Brownings and the Vickers machine guns, and the German and Italians were driving around with their 20mm flak 30s and Scotty autocannons. The Czechoslovaks were driving around with their 60 caliber 15mm vz.60 heavy machine guns. A machine gun that's set in between both the 50 cal and the 70 caliber 20mm autocannons. So what do you think of this weapon, the vz.60? Please tell me in the comments section below, and until next time, this was J-Man Time signing off.